All right. So, I don't know. Is this place like okay? Because I also occasionally would want to sit down,
Mm,
and I also don't want to block the screen.
What do you want to say?
All right. So,
Sit on the table.
on the table,
Yeah.
actually. All right. So, welcome everyone. Uh, thanks for making out time from your schedule to to come out today. Um, so my name is Paul. Paul R. I just recently graduated like a couple of weeks ago. I did study computer science. Uh, yeah, I'm pretty sure like okay, these guys here, some of them know me. We probably cross paths, but if you're like in the new intake, you probably wouldn't not know me because we've been like on online. All right, so I am a technically my tenure is over, but I am a GitHub campus expert for the ALU community, and that's why I have all these nice stickers to share around. Uh, yeah, so today I'm just gonna be introducing you to like what open source is, introducing you to the different opportunities in the field, also introducing you to because I'm leaving, right? Someone else has to be like the next GitHub campus expert for us. So also introducing you like to the application process for what it looks like. Yeah, and also showing you like different like open source like internships, fellowships, and stuff you can apply for. All right, so we're gonna be talking about like kickstarting your career with open source. So does anyone knows what open source is? Have you ever heard the word open source? It's not like I'm not gonna you. We're all gonna be doing the talking, so I can't be talking alone. Yeah, I know, Velo. That smile on your face.
Yeah. Probably a thread of open source. Yeah. That would be very
Yeah, you mind sharing with us?
So pretty much the way I would explain it is a way of for sharing and connecting with each other through sharing the codes or even if you have something you can put it up, people can pick it up and just a way of interacting with the whole tech community basically. Um, Open source is pretty much if you say something is open source, it's like open to the public. If I put up something maybe on GitHub and I say it's open source, user can use it just however he wants and just if it's going to benefit him, then yeah, that's the whole point of it. And yeah, that's the should be
All right. Yeah, I think that pretty much covers it. Anyone else want to add something? You wanna say something? It might mean something different to you, and you might have like a different perspective of
yeah.
what you think open source is.
Guys, don't be shy.
I think I'd agree with you. I think open source, for example, open source software is software that is publicly accessible to everyone, so anyone can take the code, can maybe build something out of it from it, can distribute it. So it's just publicly accessible to the whole.
Yeah, that's like below us. You guys have basically like said all that there is to it, right? So most of like the world, like most popular software runs on open source, right? The things that run like our day to day, probably the stuff that run like the embedded systems for like maybe this projector, for example, is most probably open source. Linux is open source, and you know like Linux for most of like the web servers are all Linux. So I think I can't remember the particular percentage now, but like a very huge percentage of the internet is all Linux, and that's open source, right?
Yeah.
So many things we're able to do today is because of open source, right? Imagine you're building something everyone wants has to use, right? You can't take something like that and close it and hide it inside your company and say it's only your company. right? You need like different perspective from different people, right? Different inputs and all that. That diversity comes together to make like open source software uh, um, very easy to use. All right, so we spent like the first just getting to know each other, and so you probably will be wondering what's my business with open source, right? I'm an ALU student. I came to study computer science or whatever software engineering or whatever niche I'm studying, right? And I technically do not have any business with open source, right? But then open source is like most of the software you use, right? You rely on open source, like indirectly or directly, right? So I'm very, very sure. Maybe some of you have started trying to learn like some web development on your own, and you have to use things like npm. You do npm install. That code, that npm install you're doing comes from somewhere, right? Someone else wrote that thing you're trying to use, right? So there's so many reasons why, as a student, like contributing to open source is very beneficial to you, right? So first, for the software you use, like I also do that personally. If you open my GitHub, you'll see maybe like some mailing libraries I use or anything I use. If I find a bug in that library, I try as much. Maybe I go and open like a issue, or I open a pull request or a fix or something like that. We talk about like if the words, things like pull request and all these things, they sound like gibberish. We'll get to them like in a bit. But you rely on open source software, right? So it's a way of improving the software you use every day, right? And also as a student, right? They say this thing about like you need experience to get a job, but no one wants to give you a job because you don't have experience. Right? So where am I supposed to get like the experience from? Right? Open source is one way you can get experience, right? You can improve your skills, right? Because there's no barrier to open source. The source code is there to everyone. I'll tell you, I remember like the first time when I started coding, when I learned React, I took a course and I learned like all the basics of React, and it was time for me to stitch together a big project. And I was like, okay, how do you stitch? How do you make like a big? I know I've watched like all the tutorials and all of that, but how do you put all of this together? So the first thing I did was go up and go and look for any open source React software out there and see what they're doing or why did they do like this. I could see through the comments. I could see, because everything is open, even the discussions that the organizers, the contributors, and everyone that works on the project, all the discussion they made is all open for you to see, right? You can go and look at, this was what this person said, and this is why they structured this thing like this, right? I remember then I used to be so confused about like things like Redux and all and I would just go and look at like the commit history, look at like all the conversations that the maintainers or the contributors to the project were having, and that way I would understand. So this is why this thing was done like this, right? So open source is a way you can improve your skills. Also, meeting people who are interested in similar things, right? If you're a student, you're interested in like coding, right? You also want to meet like people, like more experienced people, or even fellow students like you. They're interested. For example, maybe if you're interested in back-end development, or you're interested in like Linux, or you're interested in ops or anything, right? Open source is a way for you to meet people all around the world that have the same interests as you. All right. So, for example, there are some people that are very interested in like a very niche kind of software development, and you can't find anyone that's around. For example, I have a friend that's interested in writing Haskell. There's some very language that I don't know any other person that writes it. But then he meets people like through like the open source community, and like he gets to interact with them, right? So if sometimes, and I don't know, I also get this feeling sometimes, like I think I was just talking about it now with Bello. You get tired of like regular web development, and sometimes maybe the thing you're really passionate about is so niche and no one is doing it around. Take for example in Rwanda, like it's so hard to find like I'm doing ops, and it's so hard to find like anyone that's really into like Linux or Kubernetes, because the kind of companies here don't use that kind of stuff, right? They don't need that kind of skill. right? But how do I get to learn about this stuff, keep up to date, like what's happening is through like the open source and the different communities, right? So you can improve like your existing skills and whatever skills you want to learn by interacting with open source and by interacting with the community. All right. So also finding mentors, right? If you pick a project today and you start contributing, very it's I'm very sure like the maintenance will be like, oh, what do you do? You're a student, okay. Someone like just pick you up like I want to mentor you, right? And also it's a way for you to teach other people, right? Maybe you found like you go to a repository and you contribute code, right? And I do that often. Sometimes I don't know something, I would go and look for a solution after I've struggled and behind the scene suffered and like found a way to master it. I will come and like make it easy. But in that process of teaching other people, I'm basically like kind of like mastering it myself, right? So all right. So and also it's empowering to like make small changes, right? Like maybe I don't know if this has happened to you. You go to like if you like me, you can spot like small things. You go and you see like a simple typo on a website, or you go and you see like a very simple thing, and you're like, why is this thing here? Somebody should fix it. Like if it's open source, you can just easily like open a fix for that, right? There's no like restrictions. There's no restrictions for you, right? So being able to even make like any little changes is very empowering, right? All right. So the next question is like, okay, this open source thing sounds interesting, and I can see all the benefits for me, but how can I contribute, right? This thing sounds like things that it's only experienced software engineers can do. And to be honest, I will be honest with you. Like if you open like an open source project, a very popular, maybe a popular open source project, it would be very, as a beginner, it would be very daunting for you because you open it like some a couple of days I was trying to contribute to like a Minikube. It's a kind of like Kubernetes, and I looked at the code. I was like, okay, this is probably not on my level, but
I don't believe.
right, it can be very daunting to like get in the first place, right? So, but so how can you contribute? How can you step in, right? So you don't have to come in and try, because some of this project, take for example maybe React is probably, when React came out, I was probably still a teenager, right? I can go and want to just go fix like 10 years of work or something like in a couple of nights, right? There's a whole history, so you start little, right? And one of the ways you can contribute is through documentation. For example, if there's a particular tool you like a lot, right? You start writing tutorials on that. And I see Bello does that, right? He likes Next.js, and you would see him every time he's posting on LinkedIn, posting on Twitter about it. Okay, I'm like, okay, that's nice, right? That's how if another person comes to use that tool, they would see like your tutorial. Like, and there's so many open source projects out there that they have incomplete, because like the people working on this project probably have, they don't really see documentation as like very, maybe they're struggling to fix like a bug or something that's really pushing down like the users at the moment, so the kind of like documentation kind of misses them, right? They would really appreciate it like when you go to write like documentation for like this project. So you can start by writing documentation, simple like tutorials. And sometimes you see some project, all the documentation about that project it's not beginner friendly, right? You can't read like the documentation and be able to use like the project like very well, right? So when you take that tool and write it in a beginner friendly way, right? That's one way. For example, I'm an ambassador for a reverse proxy called Traffic. So Traffic is, it's a reverse proxy. It's a thing that basically sits in front of your server, like receives requests and like routes your request and all of that, right? The Traffic documentation itself can be very daunting for like anyone that wants to use it like the first time. Even I'm very sure some of you are hearing the word reverse proxy for like the very first time, right? But if you can go and understand like how that thing works and take like and write like a very beginner friendly tutorial on how people, because most of also these open source companies, they are also businesses, right? You're looking at the more developers adopt their technology, the better it is for them, right? So if you can go and take that technology, write it in a very beginner, because also as a beginner you would write something in a beginner friendly way, right? You wouldn't write something, you wouldn't make it complex, right? That's one way. If you're someone that's interested in designs, right, you can go, like sometimes they are too lazy, or like the entire project is so filled with developers, they don't have like designers, right? And they would really appreciate someone that would come and put some structure. And at the same time, you are helping them to create design. At the same time, you're also actually creating something that people will use, right? You get to work on like interesting problems. For example, maybe you can even help like an open source project make like a design system for them, right? A design system they will stick to like throughout like their designs. All right. Some also researching things, even researching like usability, like how usable is this feature, or doing like user research. That's kind of stuff that maybe the rest of people are so occupied like with the main coding work, like they tend to miss all of that, right? You might have a good product but people cannot use it, right? That's a problem, right? If you help open source projects like do something like, maybe for example, an open source project that has a dashboard, for example, right? And you try to use it and you notice like this dashboard is unusable, like the user experience is so bad, right? You can do like some research into like the into what into like what's the pain points with the user experience, right? And how the user experience can be improved, right? And if you pass it, you contribute that way to them, like they would be very, very appreciative of you, right? And then the final way and the most popular way is writing code. But there's so much you can do for open source that has nothing to do with code. Like if you're using an open source library, you notice a bug. Like some people do that, they will just fix the bug in their local one, and they're like, every other person can perish, right? So
Yeah. Don't be selfish.
yeah, you notice a bug, and people do that a lot. They'll just keep like they keep the node models, they keep the node model folder with their own personal fix, and keep moving the node models further around. Right? While you can go and like just make a change upstream, right? So those are like the ways you can contribute to open source. So there's always this room for you to start somewhere. If you go to an open source project, you will always find like labs for you to contribute. Even some of the biggest open source projects, you would always find somewhere where like your set of skills can fit in. All right. So another question is like, how do I find an open source project to contribute to, right? Because you might open source project, for example, if you've never written maybe something like if you've not used the tool or you've not used the language, you can't really like contribute to it, right? So these are a couple of uh, tools you can use for finding good open source issues. So there's this one called Good First Issues. So these are like very beginner friendly issues that you can take on. I'm not sure. Let me see if I can zoom in this.
No light.
That's the lighting. Well, essentially, I would share like links to this, but basically, you can just come and select based off the technology you're familiar with, right? If you're familiar with what the technology you want to learn, so that's what I do, right? If I have something I want to learn, the way I learn is by building things. I don't know how to like watch like long tutorials for long, right? So I would just go and look for like an open source project and just start contributing, and people would actually give me feedback. Oh, this code is bad. You should do it this way. You should write it this way, right? And then you take that feedback and you program, right? So for example, this year you can come and select, like for example now, selecting based on JavaScript, right? And you can come and select by the label, right? So if you want, for example, if you want to do documentation, you can come choose documentation, right? And uh, yeah, so of this gives you like a list of issues, and you can actually see them, and you can go to the issue on GitHub and actually go and contribute to. You can go. This gives you like a issue, and then you can go and contribute to the project in GitHub, right? So there are a couple of other tools like that helps like beginners. Like this is called Go First Issue. So generally in repos, right, in open source projects, if there's so an issue is basically something maybe like a bug or a feature or something that needs to be added to like a software, right? So if there's something that's not working well, or if there's a feature that needs to be added, or if there's some improvements that need to be made to the software, right? An issue is created, right? And we will talk more about that. An issue is created, and then an issue can be labeled with a good first issue means that this issue is good for beginners, right? Because depending on like some issues, some can be very very complex, right? So good first issues are labeled, and you can go if you have a project that you're interested in contributing to, right? You just go and go to the issues and search for like all the good first issues, and you see like very simple issues, and you can start small, little from there. There's also this called Up for Grabs, and there's a GitHub. I'm just gonna send you a link to all of this. But basically, all what this projects, what this all these things they help you do is find like very good open source projects you can contribute to based off your skills and based off your like interests, right? Also, as a student, my preference is also like also sometimes because you're also thinking of your career, right? You should be kind of strategic about like the kind of open source projects you contribute to, right? So, for example, if you're contributing to, if you are, say, you're interested in, you maybe one day you want to work for Facebook, right? Facebook owns React, right? If you start like opening like little pull requests, right? The people that maintain Facebook will all work at React. They will notice you, right? That you built like a rapport, and any recruiter that opens like your GitHub, they would see like your GitHub. Oh, this person actually contributes to this person contributes to Facebook, right? That's how people. That's how. In fact, sometimes when you apply to a job, the first thing the person would go and check is what's your GitHub, what kind of projects do you contribute to, and all of that, right? And they can gauge like your interest. All right. So all these tools here help you find open source projects, and you can use them for finding um, open source project you would like to contribute to. All right. So there are a couple of things. So open source, it's a community, right? People come together to build like the software we use, right? So as with any community, there are like certain things, certain like prerequisites that you kind of need to like go through before you can start being right. You can just walk into like ALU and start like being a student, right? You have to go through certain things. So it's the same way, right? So most projects all have like contribution guidelines and code of conduct, right? For example, like you shouldn't speak to people in a rude way and things like that, right? Or most projects all have like guidelines. They have contributor guidelines and code of conduct, and you can go and read through that and know like okay what's permissible like in the community and what's permissible in the project. All right, and also you have to like read the documentation. So sometimes you will see someone's trying to contribute to a project, and you can tell like they didn't even read the documentation because if you read the documentation, this thing will be clear. So you don't have to like go back and forth, and you don't waste people's time, right? So you go first and read like the documentation, and also some projects will have like examples or have like tutorials. This is a way of you familiarizing yourself with the project, right? And you can check out those and try to grasp maybe if it's a framework, for example, you try and grasp okay how does this framework works on a basic level before you even start contributing to it, right? And then also lastly, be willing to be a beginner. And this is kind of I feel like this is also a very big problem, like beginner space, right? You're a beginner, everyone knows that you're a beginner. If you step into an open source community and you're a beginner, everyone will be willing to help you, right? So don't come and don't go there and be like shy. If there's something you're not clear on, if for example, if you join like maybe let's say you're interested in Kubernetes, you go to the Kubernetes Slack. Sometimes they have like a Slack channel, and you say, "Hey, I am a student and I want to contribute to Kubernetes." Like in a couple of hours, you see like people, and you ask a question, you see like every people in the community will answer, will respond to you, right? Everyone is willing to like help you, right? So they are helping you, and in a way, you're also helping yourself, right? All right, so be willing to be a beginner, right? No one expects expertise from you as a student, right? I mean, there are a couple of students, maybe they were doing something, doing something else before they came to ALU or something like that. There are a couple of exceptions, but generally, like as uni students, we're all beginners, right? So no one expects expertise from you. So everyone understands that you're a beginner, and they're all willing to help you, and you shouldn't like seclude yourself. Uh, all right, so we're just gonna work through how you would make uh, because of this projector, because of the lighting on the projector. I don't know how we're gonna go through this. So, but essentially, this was supposed to be like a very big, brief walkthrough on how yeah, this lighting is totally unseen. I can't see anything from here. Can you see anything from the back? Yeah. All right. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna put like a link to this. I'm gonna share like the slides with everyone. You can just give me your email, share it with you. But this basically this link here has like a guide on how you will make like you make like your open source contribution, right? So basically, you would go to GitHub. I will just give you like an oral just rundown of it, and then you can have a look at the slide. Basically, you would go to like any repo you're interested in, and I don't know if you've ever, as everyone here, ever used GitHub. No,
So,
I don't want to assume like I don't want to assume that
what was the question?
GitHub. I don't want to
Yeah.
assume because there could be even people not studying CS here. All right, open source is not just limited to writing code, right? So
Think we all do, right?
everyone has used GitHub. Yeah, you would see like there's a part that says fork a project, right? Where you can make your own copy of a project, right? When you make a copy of a project, you create like your own branch. And when you create your own branch, you make like the changes you want to make, right? You push like your branch upstream, and then you can go and open a pull request against the original repository with your changes from your own repository. So like this link has like a very step-by-step process on how you would make your. We would have gone through this, but because you can see the slides, so we'll skip that part. All right. So yep, and one of the most important thing is so I told you guys at the beginning that I am a GitHub campus expert. So the campus expert program is basically a program that basically like students from campuses are like basically selected like you learn skills you shared with the community, right? And you're very like actively involved in the community in hackathons, in meetups, in maintaining open source projects. So I'm not sure, I don't know what intake are you. January, so this January. When was the last hackathon?
It was around beginning of this year, I believe.
Yeah, okay. I didn't think because technically we had to leave that for you
Yeah,
guys.
you were yeah,
All right. So, but
somewhere around March, April, March, right?
but usually would you would always find me in every you find me in every hackathon. Actually, the ALU CS hackathon since like the inception of the CS hackathon. I think I've been in like in the winning teams list since from the beginning. We had to leave the rest for Bello, but well, yeah. So if you're passionate about like, and you don't need to be like an expert when it comes to like coding, right? There's so many ways you can take an active part in the community. If you're someone that you like organizing, if you're good at planning events, if you're good, there are some people that are very good at like organizing events, talking to stakeholders, bringing people together. If you know that's your thing, you should definitely apply to like the GitHub campus experts program, right? It's not about like you, it's about you being able to form like a community of people with the right skills around you. So you might not be necessarily a very good programmer, but you know someone else that's a very, very good programmer, and you can bring them into the community to help like improve the skills of every other person, right? So you get like so many benefits from the GitHub Campus Experts program, apart from the stickers and the Git sheets. But you get like so many benefits, right? You get like mentorship, you get access to like learning opportunities, you get access to meet like so GitHub is owned by Microsoft, so by extension. So I think this was like a couple of weeks ago, and I think Bella was there at the ITU Youth Conference. I had the opportunity to mentor at a hackathon and also be a judge at the hackathon for the ITU, and that came through like the GitHub Campus Expert Program. I was on my own, and the 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 education coordination officer for GitHub just reached out to me and said, "Hey, are you available to mentor at the hackathon?" Like, I'm not doing anything, and that's how. So there's so many opportunities that you can gain from this, and also the goal is getting like good jobs and getting good intentions and all of that. This shows like your prospective employers that you're not just passive about your career, right? You're making like active effort to like improve yourself and work on your skills. All right. So so the GitHub Campus Experts program, I think you can Google it and apply for it. I will share the slides. Like the slides have links to the respective applications. So please don't think that you can apply, that your skills are not enough and any of that. The program is very, very open to anyone to apply. So please apply to the program. And also it's good branding about for you, right? LU is all about branding. If you brand yourself brand yourself well. I'm just saying.
Uh-huh.
All right. So another very important open source opportunity I want to talk about is outreach internship. So outreach internship is this is when it's basically it's reserved for like underserved communities, right? Underserved people in the communities, right? And underrepresented groups, right? This include like, in fact, to be honest with you, like your chances of getting into outreach if you're female is like super high compared to like then it's always I think it like 80 to 20 or even 90 to 10%, right? So if you're a female, if you're a black person, if you are an underrepresented group, if you have a disability, right? So this kind outreach internship is meant to like serve like those groups, right? And it's paid 7K US dollars. You end up working as a student living in Rwanda.
Yeah,
That's
that's
that's good money, right?
yeah.
And it's remote. You don't even have to leave. You don't have to leave. You don't have to leave the comfort of your room. If you're like
Yeah.
me, that you don't want to see an office. These are like the things, and it's totally fun, right? You get to connect with people all around the world, right? So that's like the fun part of open source, right? Maybe if you worked for like a company here, you would just be with like a couple of people, yeah. But just being in the open source community, you would see like different diverse people, right? It's like I have Pearsons. The first day I saw my boss, and we first day I saw it, and I saw a picture of him, and then he has Pearsons. I was like, this is not something you would stumble on, like if you worked in a regular office. But that diversity of like people and opinions, right? Uh, so the next one I want to talk about is the Google Summer of Code. So this is also one of the most respected like open source program out there, because you contribute to like so many important projects. Right, you contribute to like projects like Kubernetes, even projects like React, all the big open source projects out there, right? So the Google Summer of Code is a program like started by Google in 2005, where like students spend like their summer contributing to open source projects, right? And Google pays them to do that, right? So previously it used to be reserved for only university students, but now this year they extended it, so even if you're not a university, like if you just graduated like me, you can also do it. And I'm currently like doing Google Summer of Code, like in addition to it, and it's paid, like right. So these are not like free. These are not working for free, right? And one thing I really appreciate about open source is if I go somewhere and I tell you I can do this thing, I would need to like really prove myself, right? But if you've been contributing to us open source, all I just have to do is open your GitHub. I can actually see like all the projects you contributed to. I can see the kind of code you write. I can gauge what level you are, right?
Yeah.
That's already like a way of you validating like your skills to your employer, right? Someone can just go and look at your open source project and they will just say there's no need to give this person a take home assignment. What this person, I can see the kind of code this person knows how to code, and it's all open in the public for everyone to see. All right. So yeah, so Google Summer of Code opens during the summer. So like a couple of months before like the summer. So you should when it's time you keep tabs on all these programs. You should apply to them. Outreach is currently open, and I think it should the application closes in a couple of days, or not sure it should close this month. So you should apply to this. And just a couple of things you should know with this program. No one is I know this sounds like very high up there, but no one is expecting expertise from you, right? Everyone knows like you're a student, right? Most times what people want to see with this program is like your commitment, right? How committed are you? How are you willing to learn, right? I don't expect to come into a university and come and find an expert, right? So what people are most concerned is like what's your commitment to learning, and are you open to learning, right? And when you apply to these programs, essentially you just have to demonstrate that, right? So one of the mistakes like people make is trying to show that they are experts. They will call you bluff because they know like there's no way you'd be an expert at this point in your career, right? So if you essentially when applying to these programs, you need to show that you're willing to like learn and you're taking continuous step to improve on your skills every day. All right, so another very popular one is MLH Fellowship, and there's an open source track, right, where you get to work with companies like Facebook and the rest, and you should check it out. There's like different track. There's like I think there's also a production engineering track. So if that's something that you're interested in, so you can check that out. So you basically you spend like your summer working on like very interesting projects, and these are all paid by the way. None of this is you're not doing free work for it. You get paid get paid for this. All right, so there's a list here that has like a very long list of like open source internships, fellowships that you can apply for. And the good thing with particularly I like about Google Summer of Code is, so for me, I was like, okay, I'm not sure. I'm not sure I want to do Google Summer of Code right now. Even when the offer came, I was like, okay, do I really want to do this? But then Google Summer of Code, you have like the choice to pick the kind of projects you want to work on, right? So there are so many companies apply and get in, right? So for example, for example, I told myself, if the project is not Kubernetes or it's not Go, I'm not gonna work on the project, right? Because that's the only thing I'm interested in right now, right? So you have that choice. If you have a particular kind of skill you want to hone, you want to become better at, you can go and look for companies or organizations that are doing like that exact same thing, and you write a proposal to them, right? So if you have a very specific skill you want to hone, like this is the so it's not like where you go maybe for example you're not interested if maybe you're not interested in back end, but you go somewhere and then you're given back end and you're maybe like you don't find it like interesting, right? So this gives you like the opportunity for you to contribute to like projects you really find interesting and you're passionate about. All right, so there's a list with all like a long. There's so many of them. I can't cover them. I just covering like the very popular ones. Like these are like the ones I know can all apply to, and they're all paid. I don't think there's any. I don't think there's any open source any of them that pays at least less than 1,005. that's good money for you as a student, and you can use that like and cover like your bills in summer. All right. So in summary, I did speak a lot, but that's basically like the everything I wanted to share with you guys today, and how you, especially as students, and how you can take advantage of these opportunities to like build your career, right? So if you've been applying to internships so far and you're not getting like good responses, or they're telling you you don't have like the right skills and all of that, you should start contributing to like open source projects now. And tomorrow someone they come and they tell you, say, you see this project you actually use at your company, i I'm also a contributor to this project you use at your company, right? So it's a way of validating your skills to your employers. And yeah, I'm hoping like in the next 3 months, if I look at your GitHub profiles, it shouldn't be dry. I should see like those green stars as someone has been coding like every day. All right, so yeah, thank you very much for showing up. If you have any questions, if you have any comments, if there's anything you need clarification on, yeah. If there's any particular of the programs you're curious about, like how exactly what goes on, and if you want me to talk about my experience also, the Google some of code.
When they reach you,
How can you reach me?
and after this,
Okay, Bello has my number.
We don't check your
Oh, you don't have Bello's number? Yeah, this is an opportunity to get his number.
but yeah, thank you very much. That was great.
All right. So anyone has so just go through the list because I can't mentally keep track of all the deadlines. I'm very sure that outreach is this month. So especially like it's designed for underrepresented people. So guys don't take it. I see people take it personally, and I'm like, no, like it's the same way like as an African, you will get a scholarship to go study in the West, right? It's the same rationale, right? It's the same logic. As an Af-
Because they're supporting you.
yeah, and we know like by ratio of like in education, like we're underrepresented, right? So and you kind of need like some bump up to be able to catch up, right? It's the same thing that happens with this. So outreach is your chances of getting in if you're female is way is way higher, and you should all apply. And there's also the good thing about outreach is it's not just only code, right? If you're good with documentation, events planning, there are a couple of other roles like you can fit in within outreach. So you should apply to this program. Yeah. And there's a project you've always liked, and also you can also start your own projects. So by the way, I don't know if you guys have seen it, but I'm pretty sure some of you have seen it. But I maintain like I built like a couple of like open source projects, and I need help maintaining them. That if you have some time and you want to work on something fun, you can. It's all open source. You can contribute. It's that just reach out to me. I'll try as much as possible to like include documentations that are beginner friendly and all of that, and you can start contributing to like projects. So it's like I think it's called Ahanu. It's a tool for finding like your your cell, your village, district, your sector from like your address or your current location, right? So I think I can show you guys a little demo. So it's all open source, and if you want to contribute to it, if you want to so the plan for today, if not because of the projector, was we're gonna do that, and then we're gonna like make like a live contribution on like this project. Like since we're struggling to see the projector, the internet seems
Yeah,
slow today.
it's very slow.
That isn't actually unusual. Internet is always fast. All right, so but it's Hanu. That's okay. It's actually loaded. So you can either So the current location feature doesn't really. Let's see if I can bump this up. The current location feature doesn't really work on laptops, except your laptop has a GPS device, but most laptops don't work have a GPS. So basically, you can type in like a street. You can type in like a street. I don't know, Keji. I don't know, Keji. Even for example, Kimironko markets, and then it will give you like the. Come on, don't disappoint me. Interesting.
Yeah.
All right, but essentially, it just helps you, and like as foreigners, like we personally, I struggled so hard. Like for example, now I just moved to like a new place like a couple of years ago, and I don't know the sector, I don't know the village, I just know that my house is in so place, right? So it's a tool for doing that, and in this this was like just a very basic. This was like the first MVP for it. So if you have like features you want to add, stuff, this is also a way for you to contribute to like a live project. So it's all open source. If you want to contribute to it, just let me know. All right. So yeah, I guess that would be it. If you have any other thing you want to add, the floor is yours now.
Well, you've said it all.
Have I?
Yeah. Let's pray to stay for the music.